What's going on, everybody? GoodMicWork commentaries back at you with episode 508, trying to get myself back on track here. The content on the YouTube channel in the past few weeks has been a little bit all over the place. That's been primarily due to me being very busy at work and also going on vacation. And then when I returned home from vacation, I've been kind of playing catch up. I've been working a lot and it's kind of been a mess. So the last time I've been up here for any non-live stream type of video was about a week ago when I did my one-off episode on the reinstatement of Hulk Hogan. Prior to that, it's been a while since I've been up here. And of course, as most of you know, I was not in town during Extreme Rules. I was still on vacation, so I didn't come up and do a review after the pay-per-view. And I wasn't able to get a video up on the post-Extreme Rules Raw and SmackDown either. So this is my first opportunity to really talk to you guys about some of the current angles and the current shit that we've been seeing right now in WWE and what the SummerSlam card is looking like potentially here in a few weeks for that pay-per-view. So that's going to be primarily what this episode is going to be focused on. We're going to talk about all the different angles and all the different segments and storylines and matches heading into SummerSlam. I will briefly recap Monday Night Raw. We'll do the same thing for SmackDown. I'll mention a little bit about NXT because we had a huge title change on NXT on Wednesday, and that's probably going to be it. So even though I'm limiting this to mostly WWE stuff, I still expect this to be a relatively lengthy podcast. What I'm also going to try to do maybe this weekend is get another one-off episode up to you, maybe Saturday or Sunday, depending on when I have time, but I know there's some other stuff going on outside of the WWE's universe that I could potentially talk about. So if you want to hear me talk about a particular subject for a one-off episode this weekend, leave some suggestions in the comments below. I'll take a look at them, and hopefully I'll be able to get up here and give you guys an extra video. So let's start with Monday Night Raw this past week, the July 23rd edition. The show opened up and was pretty much focused on this big historic announcement that Stephanie McMahon would be announcing. They did let everybody know on social media a few days before Monday Night Raw, I believe, that Stephanie would be on the show to make some historic announcement in WWE. And every time Stephanie comes on TV in recent years to make a historic announcement, it usually involves the women. So we all speculated that it was going to be something female related. There was a couple of different possibilities floating around. One of those was a women's tag team title. There's been a lot of talk of that in the last year or maybe even two, and it seems like something that is inevitable. And as a matter of fact, I even saw an interview with Stephanie McMahon, I think as recent as yesterday, where she did acknowledge the fact that a women's tag team title would be implemented sometime in the future in WWE. That's pretty much a given. So we thought that that could be one of the announcements. And the other one was the possibility of an all-women's pay-per-view. So those were the two rumors kind of floating around prior to Monday Night Raw. And instead of Stephanie being out there by herself, she's actually joined by Vince McMahon and Triple H. So they basically have the three most powerful people in WWE out there making that announcement, which when I saw that during the live stream, I kind of speculated that this might not be for a women's tag team title. I don't think you bring out everybody to announce a women's tag team championship. It's not even a championship that they've never had before. The women's tag team titles have existed back in the 80s, so it's not even really a brand new thing. So I started becoming skeptical on that announcement when I saw all three McMahons out there. So they all talked. Vince McMahon said a few words, Triple H said a few words, and they all heavily praised the women and the entire roster for the advancement of women's wrestling and the growth and everything that the women's division has gone through in the past couple of years. You know, the men accepted them and the women worked hard and they were all teary-eyed and very emotional. And then Stephanie finally gets on the mic last and delivers the big announcement that the women will have their very own pay-per-view titled Evolution, which I thought was an interesting name. This is going to go down on October 28th, I think in Long Island, and it's going to be an all-women pay-per-view, women only. And I think that's fantastic. I really was looking forward to that announcement. If it turned out to be that, I was like, hey, you know what? They'll probably make it really good. My biggest issue with this, which I'll get into in a minute, is WWE's overkill. I mean, boy, are they shoving this shit up our asses. And that's one thing that just drives me crazy about the WWE is they take what is otherwise a really, really great and wonderful idea and they completely rape it and mangle it and overhype this shit out of it. And I'm not saying don't hype it, but Jesus, some of this stuff just gives me a headache. But anyway, after all three McMahon said a few words, Stephanie does announce the big pay-per-view, and they even ask all of the women, because the entire roster is on the stage. They all ask asked them to take a step forward, and that's when they announced the whole thing. And I'll tell you what, the one shining star in this whole thing, I got to give her props, was Nikki Cross. She had me dying. I was laughing so hard. I don't know what her deal was, but just the look on her face, the way she was giggling and smiling, and she seems to be out there for no apparent reason. She's an NXT girl. She didn't get called up with Sanity to the main roster. Why is she even there? And I think it's so perfect for her kind of goofy-ass character that she just wandered onto the stage unnoticed, and she's just sitting there. I mean, she was front and center. I didn't even see Charlotte. I don't even remember seeing Asuka out there. They might have been. I just don't remember seeing them on screen. But the fact that Nikki Cross was right there in front, I thought was absolutely hysterical. And I couldn't stop laughing about it on the live stream on Monday. So that was fun. And like I said, I did like the announcement because right after the announcement, they cut to the commentary team where Michael Cole, Jonathan Coachman, and Corey Graves are talking about it. And Michael Cole says that at the Evolution pay-per-view, 4 big matches are already set. They're going to have the SmackDown Women's title, the Raw Women's title, and the NXT Women's title. They will all be defended at Evolution. And we're also going to have the finals of the Mae Young tournament to take place on that pay-per-view as well. So that tournament should kick off here on the WWE Network shortly, and they're going to save the finals for Evolution. So that's a big deal. Those 4 matches right there alone, I think are going to make this pay-per-view amazing. I think this is going to be a really good show because you can take women from everywhere. And Stephanie mentioned that it's going to be past, present, and even maybe future WWE women, which means we're going to get some legends from the past. I think they've already confirmed that Trish and Lita will be there. I don't know if they'll be involved in a match or just a segment, or maybe they'll have maybe like a turn back the clock match between the two of them. I don't know. It reminds me of an idea came to me when I was thinking about this back in the day in WCW, Slamboree, back in like the early 90s. They used to do these like turn back the clock matches where they would bring back old legends. I remember Dick Murdoch had a match on one of these shows. I think Nick Bockwinkel did. So maybe they'll do something like that with Lita and Trish, maybe more of an exhibition. But as good as Lita and Trish were back in the day, I think the women today are even better than that. And now when you add the age and the time spent out of the ring with Trish and Lita, how good of a match can they really have? So if either one of these two girls are going to be involved, or these two women, I should say, are going to be involved in any matches at Evolution, I think it should be in a tag team type of environment or situation or something like that, to where they're not maybe, exposed, I guess is a better word. So it's going to be fun. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm excited for it. I think WWE is going to do this up right. It's going to be a lot of fun, and we're almost guaranteed to have some title changes here, and we might even get some dream matches, because when you mix in all the NXT girls, now you got all sorts of shit. You're going to have Shayna Baszler and Ronda Rousey and Charlotte and Asuka and Kairi Sane, all these women competing on the same show. You got to think there's going to be some cross promotion here. You're going to have some matchups that we wouldn't normally necessarily see. And by then, who knows what Ronda Rousey will be doing. By then, she will most likely be Raw Women's Champion, although I guess there's a chance Alexa Bliss could escape SummerSlam. But if Ronda goes into that pay-per-view as champion, and it's the first ever women's pay-per-view, you know her opponent has to be a big opponent. This probably needs to be a WrestleMania caliber match, and the only one I can think of off the top of my head would be Charlotte. Maybe Asuka, maybe a Shayna Baszler, but Charlotte, I think, is the one that should take on Ronda Rousey. I mean, can you imagine that match, main eventing Evolution, Charlotte versus Ronda Rousey? Very, very, very possible that will happen. I'm also hoping for Asuka to have her moment sometime between now and Evolution. If it doesn't take place before, maybe at Evolution, she can finally win the SmackDown Women's title, which they seem like they're really dragging their feet on. They want to keep Carmella as this asshole champion, so they brought back Ellsworth as a way for them to escape that feud without having to give Asuka the belt. Now you got people thinking that she's buried and she's ruined and all this shit. I'm not even get into that debate because that's stupid. But I still think that she's going to have her moment sometime, so maybe if you give it to her at Evolution, that could also be fun. So on the surface, the announcement itself in a vacuum by itself, I love. I think the Evolution pay-per-view is going to be great. I think the women are going to bust their ass and kick ass. They've come through on just about everything else WWE has let them do. They've had great Hell in the Cell matches. They had a respectable Elimination Chamber. They had a respectable Royal Rumble. And the few times that they have main evented pay-per-views or Raws or SmackDowns, they've done a good job. So I think an all-women pay-per-view can work, especially the fact that it's on the WWE Network. network. And you don't have to worry about like selling pay-per-view buys for any of this shit. I think it can do really well, and I predict it's going to be really successful. The problem I have with this is how WWE is going to handle it. Because, my God, I mentioned in my live stream, I need to do some research and find out exactly how much yoga one would have to do to be able to suck their own dicks the way WWE sucks theirs. I mean, my God, they are just all about this stuff. And that's when the cynic in me starts coming out, because I find it so ridiculous and just annoyingly disgusting the way WWE just goes so over the top with this. Yes, you're going to have an all-women's pay-per-view. Great. You should have an all-women's pay-per-view. After what happened at the Greatest Royal Rumble, this is a very nice answer to the Greatest Royal Rumble. Hey, if we have to do a pay-per-view where we're not allowed to have women, we're going to do a pay-per-view where it's only women. So I think that's a really nice answer. I think that's a really nice consolation prize for the women. And a lot of what happened and the reasons why they couldn't have women compete in the Greatest Royal Rumble might have helped sway this decision to do an all-women's pay-per-view this year instead of holding it off for a little later. So, like I said, all that is great, but the WWE, I think they're more interested in just looking good in the eyes of the public than really promoting the women. I mean, they have to get all emotional on there. WWE's got this really nice partnership now with ESPN, and the whole time I'm watching Stephanie and Vince McMahon and Triple H talk, the whole time I'm thinking that in their heads, they're thinking to themselves, wow, this is going to look great on ESPN later. Or when ESPN posts this on their Facebook page, a clip of Triple H crying about how great the women are and how they're, evolving and all this stuff. It's going to make WWE look so good. I think WWE is more concerned with the way they look in the eyes of the public, because they are a publicly traded company, and they don't need to be looked at in a negative light like they used to. They've been working very hard in the last 10 or so years to really repair a lot of that damage. And that's why I think they're so involved with all these charities. Yes, I think it's awesome with all the Make-A-Wish stuff that they do, and all the philanthropy, the WWE, the money too, that they just throw out to everywhere. But again, I think they're doing that for a reason. I think they're spending that money not because they want to help people, but because they want to make themselves look good. So the fact that WWE is so up their own ass about this Evolution pay-per-view, it just gets annoying. They're taking, like I said, what is a great idea, and they're going to ruin it. And they're going to make it so annoying, but by the time we get to the pay-per-view, it's going to be up to the women to save it, because WWE has already, raped the entire idea and concept by just over-promoting the shit out of it. So it's just one of those things where I wish WWE would step back, go ahead and plug it, make a big announcement, put a bunch of shit on your website and social media, but you don't need to mention it in every single segment on Monday Night Raw. Did you notice that on Raw and SmackDown? That the Women's Evolution pay-per-view, I'm pretty sure, was brought up in every segment they did. Every backstage interview, every in-ring promo, every commercial break, every time they cut to the announcers, they had to mention something about the Evolution pay-per-view. It's just such a WWE thing to do. And I just hope that they take a few steps back here in the next few weeks and they just don't overdo it on this, because you don't need to. They're promoting Evolution more than SummerSlam right now. So I'm going to give them a break on the first week. If they want to go over the top with it and they want to, just overkill this whole Evolution thing in the first week, fine, do it. But please, WWE, we know the pay-per-view is happening. We know when it's taking place and what matches are going to be on there and how Stephanie McMahon made the announcement. You've shown it to us, 100 times in the last 48 hours. So you don't need to keep reminding us. We know. We're aware of it. So why don't we just concentrate on SummerSlam for the moment and at least get to SummerSlam, which, by the way, is your second biggest pay-per-view of the year, and you should be concentrating on, and then we'll worry about Evolution later on down the road. But, I found the pay-per-view name, too, by the way, kind of interesting, the fact that it's called Evolution, named after Triple H's faction. And I was wondering if maybe they would form a faction in the women's division during Evolution. What if a 4-women group formed up and maybe the 4 horsewomen, are aligned at that pay-per-view or something like that? Might be kind of ironic. I don't know. But I guess it really is an appropriately named pay-per-view considering how far the women have come in the last few years. Just a few years ago, they were divas. Just a few years ago, we had a 30-second match involving the Bellas or something, and the fans flipped out. Next thing you know, there was a Give Divas a Chance hashtag, and WWE took notice and started signing some girls and training some girls at the Performance Center. They started getting over and showing their ability in NXT. Next thing you know, they're on the main roster, and now the women's division is better than it has ever been in the history of professional wrestling. And that's saying something, because women's wrestling dates back, nearly 100 years. But I think it's as good now, at least talent-wise, maybe not storyline-wise and shit like that, but talent-wise, it's as good as it has ever been in the entire history of the business. And that's a big deal. So I think the women do deserve credit. I think the women do deserve praise. And I think the women do deserve their own pay-per-view. And I have no doubt in my mind, and I am fully confident that the women will kick ass at Evolution. I just think WWE's promotion of it is going to make us sick to our fucking stomachs. So anyway, there you go. There's my thoughts on the Evolution pay-per-view. That was probably the biggest news of the week, and it's what everybody is talking about right now, and it's what most of you have wanted to hear my thoughts on. So I figured I would open up with that. The other big news on Monday Night Raw is that Brock Lesnar's SummerSlam opponent seems to be set. Roman Reigns and Bobby Lashley were set to face one-on-one in the main event of Raw. The winner of this match, of course, is going to go on to face Brock Lesnar at SummerSlam, and it was rumored as far back as immediately after the Greatest Royal Rumble that this match is a possibility for the main event of SummerSlam. And over the past year, even though I'm not a psychotic Roman Reigns hater like so many people are, I've still been very much kind of against the idea of him being Universal Champion. Didn't want to see it happen. Had no interest in seeing him be the guy to defeat Brock Lesnar. And that's what we thought they were going to do all the way back at WrestleMania. We thought for sure, it was a done deal. Roman Reigns was going to beat Brock Lesnar. And instead, Roman Reigns got pounded into the ground, left in a pool of his own blood and piss, and Brock walked out of WrestleMania still Universal Champion. So then we said, okay, what they're going to do here is, because they know the fans all boo Roman Reigns, they're having this big match in Saudi Arabia. It's going to be a rematch. We're going to have Roman Reigns win the title there. That way he can be in front of an audience that is going to cheer him. And what happened? He lost there too. And I almost wish that would have been the end of it. But the minute we saw the finish, the minute we saw the way Brock Lesnar retained the title, you knew Roman was going to get another rematch. They're not going to end it like that. Don't tell me it doesn't make sense. It does. It makes a lot of sense. The cage match, I don't think made sense. They shouldn't have even done that. But the finish of the cage match definitely easily sets up a rematch. But if it was up to me, WrestleMania would have been the end of it. So here we are, Roman Reigns versus Bobby Lashley at Extreme Rules. They did first, and Lashley beat him clean. And that, as great as it was to see Roman lose, that made me nervous. The very first thing I thought was that, oh shit, this might be a way to give Lashley a victory, and then if Roman winds up facing Brock somehow at SummerSlam, it keeps Lashley right on top. He's probably going to be Roman's first challenger, or if they have a rematch, Roman can get his win back and then go and face Brock at SummerSlam, and that's exactly what they did. They held the 2 triple threat matches. Roman and Lashley won, setting up the one-on-one match on Raw, and it wasn't that great of a match. It was very much similar to their Extreme Rules match. And Lashley got the victory clean in that one. And then in this match on Monday Night Raw on Monday, Roman beat him with the spear, pinned him. There was even the show Respect at the end where they shook hands. And there you have it. Roman Reigns is heading into SummerSlam to face Brock Lesnar. Now, Brock Lesnar will be on Monday Night Raw next week. That has been confirmed. And he's supposedly going to confront his SummerSlam opponent. But considering that they did this storyline and this angle with Paul Heyman pitching a fit about Brock Lesnar and refusing to face the winner of the multi-man match, well, now he's got to face Roman Reigns again, a guy that he's already defeated several times, 3 times, dating all the way back to last year's SummerSlam when he pinned him in the Fatal 4-Way. So you would think that if Paul Heyman pitched a fit about the first match, how is he going to be okay with Brock Lesnar facing Roman Reigns again? And he's going to demand that the match be thrown out or whatever. So maybe, just maybe, there's a chance for somebody else to be thrown in here and make it a triple threat. I doubt it at this point. If they were going to do that, I thought maybe they would end the Roman and Lashley match on Monday with a DQ or a count out or some interference or something to where there's no winner declared and they make it a triple threat. But Roman wound up beating him, so it does look like it will be Roman and Brock. And I also thought that WWE would split it up with the Raw and the SmackDown titles, or the WWE title and the Universal title, I should say. I thought one show would have a one-on-one match for the belt and the other show would have a multi-man match for the belt. But now it's starting to look like both matches will be one-on-one for both titles, unless they change something last minute, like I said. But Roman going in to face Brock Lesnar, hold on to your seats here. Try not to have a heart attack, stroke, aneurysm, whatever, with what I'm about to say here. But with this particular match with Roman Reigns, this is the first time that he's faced Brock that I've actually been okay with it. I really don't mind, because you got some wild cards out there, guys. You've got some major variables. One big one is that briefcase is in the hands right now of Braun Strowman. Now, the Braun Strowman character that we've all grown to love on television in my eyes, should appear next Monday night on Raw and demand to face Brock Lesnar for the belt. That's what the Braun Strowman that I've seen would do. That's exactly something that he would do. And if he doesn't, that means the briefcase could come into play and most likely will come into play at SummerSlam. And there's a couple of different things they can do here, because we also saw on Monday Night Raw that Stephanie announced that Braun Strowman will be facing Kevin Owens at SummerSlam, and the briefcase is on the line. So Kevin Owens has a chance to win the briefcase. And as much as I love Strowman with the briefcase, I wouldn't mind Kevin Owens holding it either. I think he would be a great briefcase holder. So I think one or the two of them is going to cash that thing in at SummerSlam. But one of the bigger plot holes here is what I just mentioned. Strowman has got a match with Owens for the briefcase at SummerSlam. What is stopping Braun Strowman from cashing in before SummerSlam? Then the briefcase doesn't even have to be on the line. Is there some sort of a stipulation that states that Strowman can't cash in prior to SummerSlam? Because unless that stipulation exists, I think Strowman needs to show up on Monday Night Raw next week and at least tease the cash in, at least try to cash in, and then maybe something happens where he's unable to. But I'm going to be very confused and very disappointed if next week on Raw, Strowman doesn't at least show up. I thought they might do some sort of a suspension angle with him when he threw Kevin Owens off the top of the cage. I thought maybe they would suspend Strowman just to get him off of TV to where they don't have to explain why he's not cashing in with Brock out there. But if Strowman is in the building next week and Brock is in the building next week and Strowman is not injured or suspended or locked in a cage somewhere, I don't see how he does not come out there and try to challenge Brock Lesnar for the title. But if somehow they get past all that and they make it to SummerSlam and the briefcase still exists during the SummerSlam main event, you gotta know either Braun Strowman or Kevin Owens, if he's somehow able to steal the briefcase away from Braun Strowman, one of those guys has got to cash in. And I think Owens would be a lot of fun. You guys know what a big Strowman mark I am, but if they had Owens win the briefcase and then cash in later on in the night, that would be a huge swerve. None of us would really even see that coming. And Owens, hey, he never really got his rematch, did he? After Goldberg, I don't think Finn Balor did either. So Owens, that sets up the perfect reasoning for him to cash in like that. Hey, you assholes aren't going to give me a rematch, so I have to go out and steal the briefcase and win my belt back on my own. So the biggest reason why I don't have a huge problem with Roman facing Brock Lesnar at SummerSlam is because I really have a hard time believing that Roman Reigns will spear and pin Brock Lesnar, win the Universal title, celebrate with the audience while the fireworks go off and the show goes off the air. If Roman does beat Brock Lesnar, I think the briefcase holder needs to come down and cash in. Or if they still want to keep Brock Lesnar strong, because he is clearly going to go back to the UFC at some point. He did that big, that big spot at the pay-per-view a few weeks back where he got in the ring and he got in the octagon and confronted Daniel Cormier. And they're going to set up a match in the future between those two. So WWE still probably wants to keep Brock, as this beast, as this unstoppable guy. But at the same time, you got to give us our fucking belt back. It's been a year and a half since this asshole has held the belt, and we have not had the Universal title on Raw in that amount of time. This is getting ridiculous. So some fans, even the Roman Reigns haters, have come to me on Twitter and say, I don't give a shit who wins this match as long as Brock is no longer the champion. So I think that's what's going to happen at SummerSlam. I mean, if Brock is somehow able to survive this yet again and retain again and hold the WWE title until WrestleMania, I can't even imagine that happening. He's got to drop it here because essentially two guys have the chance to win the belt. Roman Reigns and whoever is the briefcase holder upon the time of the main event. So if Strowman winds up beating Owens, maybe Strowman shows up in the main event and inserts himself and makes it a triple threat. That's very possible with Roman and Brock. So it could be a three-way and Strowman wins the belt there. They might protect Brock and have him lose the belt without being pinned, or they might have him lose clean finally and have Roman Reigns beat him, spear him, and pin him clean finally, getting Brock out of there and having somebody defeat him and putting the belt back on a regular roster member. And then from there, you can kind of have the briefcase holder come down and cash in. I don't know. They've done it a million times, but now when you throw Owens into the mix, you got Roman versus Lesnar. You can either make this match a triple threat. You can have the match run its course and have the briefcase holder come down and cash in. There's a bunch of things you can do, or you can even maybe do the cash in on Monday Night Raw. How fun would that be? And I think that would be so ironic, and it would be poetic justice. It would be perfect karma for Brock Lesnar, who has not wrestled on Raw since he's returned to the company. He has never wrestled on Raw. since what, 2004 or 3 or some shit like that? How long has it been since he's had a match on Raw? He's this big tough guy who only defends the belt on big pay-per-views against big opponents, and he's this big attraction and this big draw. But what if he somehow survives, beats beats Roman Reigns at SummerSlam, and then when he's out on Monday Night Raw declaring himself the king of the wrestling world and he's going to retire as champion, the briefcase holder, hopefully Strowman, comes down and challenges him right there on Monday Night Raw, and Strowman beats him for the belt. Title change on Monday Night Raw. Raw could use it, right? Raw desperately needs the ratings. And if you have Brock Lesnar end his 1.5 year long title run on Monday Night Raw in the opening segment, that might be fun too. So, I just ask the fans' patience on this. I understand Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar is not what everybody wants to see, because everybody is so terrified that Roman Reigns is going to have this big, glorious day in the sun. But I think we should all move past that by now. Everybody thinks that WWE is all about Roman Reigns. Every major match that they have put him in the past couple of years since his wellness policy violation has not gone well. He's only won a few of them. He's had a victory over Braun Strowman. He's had a victory over Samoa Joe and some other guys, but he's also gotten his ass kicked a shit ton of times. And he's lost. Everybody that he's beat, he's also lost to. So Roman certainly isn't being pushed like 2007 John Cena here, and he has not been champion now in over 2 years. So if he does win the belt, it's not like, oh, just sick and tired, more Roman, more Roman. No, he hasn't been the champion in forever. Considering this guy is on top of the card, he's actually overdue for a title reign if you really think about it. When you think about other people in his, on his level, on the roster, like top 2, 3, 5 guys, whatever it is, most of those guys have runs a little bit more frequently than Roman Reigns does. So it's not like WWE has got their mouths wrapped around this guy's balls. I wish the fans would get that out of their mind, because that's really not the case. But he is getting title shot after title shot after title shot on pay-per-view, and eventually you got to think he's going to win the belt. But I think he's a better choice than Lashley. Not that I don't like Lashley. I think the guys just look as amazing. He's just freakishly scary looking. And I think the guy with the MMA background and the wrestling background could make a really good opponent for Brock Lesnar. But the problem is the fans don't care. The fans do not give a shit about Bobby Lashley, because when Roman Reigns comes out to the ring, some fans are cheering, but a majority of them are booing loud as shit, like blowing the roof off level loud here. That's how loud Roman Reigns is getting booed. When Lashley comes to the ring, goddamn crickets. Crickets. Nobody does anything. Kind of like Jinder Mahal. When he comes in, nobody boos, nobody cheers, nobody gives a fuck. And that's a shame, because Lashley is a good guy, and he's got good intentions, but he's not Roman, and he doesn't get the response that Roman gets from the fans. So WWE, with Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar in the ring, the last thing the fans are going to be at SummerSlam is quiet. This is in New York, don't forget, too. So this is going to be a very kind of rabid audience. They're going to be loud. They're going to be vocal. And they're going to be very, very anti-Roman Reigns, which makes up for a lot more fun match than if Lashley was out there facing Brock. The fans might not be doing anything. The fans might be quiet. I still think Lashley would probably have the support, the overall support of the fans in that situation, because Brock has been holding the Universal title hostage for so long. The fans will probably be rooting for Lashley, but as far as him generating that passionate response from the fans, he doesn't get that. He just doesn't get that reaction from the fans at all. Roman Reigns does, and I think that's what WWE is looking for, is for a high energy, you can, cut the electricity with a knife type of main event, and you got a better chance of getting that with Roman Reigns than Bobby Lashley taking on Brock Lesnar. So that's my take on the whole thing, and like I said, I think the briefcase is going to play a big role in SummerSlam, and whatever happens, I'm not sold on the idea that Roman Reigns is walking out of there as champion, because if he is screwed over, and the briefcase holder does do something to where they're able to take the belt away from Roman or ruin his opportunity, that ties in to some of the things that Roman has been saying on TV in the past few months. Remember when he was claiming WWE's got a conspiracy against him, and he went backstage and confronted Vince McMahon at Gorilla and got himself suspended? Remember all that? So I think that can all tie in here. If Roman Reigns actually wins the belt and then gets screwed over at the end and gets the belt taken off of him, maybe by Kevin Owens, who we already know is in good with Triple H and Stephanie McMahon. Stephanie is the one that gave him the match against Braun Strowman, and Triple H is the one that helped him win the Universal title to begin with. So Owens walking out of SummerSlam right now, I think might be one of the more likely options that we'll see there. So just keep an open mind, see what they do. If they have a straight up match with Roman versus Brock, Roman beats him with a spear and celebrates and the pay-per-view goes off the air and nobody comes in to cash in the briefcase, then fine. I'll be right there hating this match with all of you. But I say at least give this a chance to where WWE likes to do that to us too. They like to troll the fans. They like to make them think they're going to shove Roman Reigns down their throat, and then at the last minute, they yank the rug out from underneath Roman. Everybody thought Roman would win at WrestleMania. He didn't. Everybody thought he would win at the Greatest Royal Rumble. He didn't. Everybody thought he would win last year at SummerSlam. He didn't. Hell, everybody thought he was going to win a couple of Royal Rumbles too, didn't they? One, Triple H threw him out, and the other one, Nakamura threw him out. So every time the fans think Roman Reigns is going to get this big pay-per-view main event moment, he doesn't. Hell, Survivor Series, when Sheamus cashed in the briefcase, remember? So this happens to Roman Reigns a lot, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if it happens to him again at SummerSlam. So just take your lithium, take a deep breath, smoke a joint, whatever you need to do to relax. Let's not freak out yet. Let's wait and see what happens at SummerSlam before we start throwing ourselves off of bridges, okay? Aside from that, all we really saw on Monday Night Raw was the continuation of the very confusing and now possible love angle between Bayley and Sasha. This is all starting to make a little bit more sense now because I have been ripping this feud apart in the past couple of weeks because it makes no fucking sense. These are two girls that are just simply friends on the roster. They haven't been getting along. They've been having an issue. And instead of letting them settle their differences in the ring, like you would do in every single other situation like this, male or female, when you have a conflict, you settle in the ring. That's what pro wrestling is. That's what you do. But in this situation, Kurt Angle has decided that what these girls need to do is not to go in the ring and settle their differences, but to go into counseling together and therapy together. And I found that so ludicrous. I'm like, what the hell is going on here? Dr. Shelby is back to try to get these girls back friends again. They're in the professional fucking wrestling business. They're out there in matches and they're competing against each other. Sometimes tempers flare up. That's what happens in pro wrestling. If this happens with the men, you have a match. Hell, if this even happens with the women, you have a match. So why are these two different? Why is Kurt Angle insisting that they go to therapy and that if they can't work out their differences, he's going to send one of them to SmackDown? What the hell is going on here? That makes no sense unless Kurt Angle knows something that we don't. Unless Kurt Angle knows that these two are actually romantically involved, that they're in a relationship together. And that's why he's trying to save their relationship by putting them in therapy and shit like that. That's the only thing that really makes sense here. And WWE has been teasing the shit out of it. We've seen on camera, they've come really close to kissing. And I'm starting to think they're going to do it because that's completely within the guidelines of PG. There's nothing salacious about that. We're not talking about 2003 when Eric Bischoff is trying to bring in HLA, hot lesbian action. No, we're talking about two women in a relationship, in a romantic relationship together that are also in the professional wrestling business. It's causing some conflicts in the relationship. And I think that might be what they wind up doing because WWE has been trying to incorporate a little bit of that. We've seen it in other forms of entertainment on every television show now. You know, the new Roseanne and Modern Family and God knows how many more. There's always a homosexual couple, married, male or female, on one of those shows. It's something that we see very often. You see it in soap operas now, and it's something that's becoming, more prevalent in entertainment. So it would make perfect sense for WWE to go in this direction. They don't have to do it tasteless. This can be completely normal. Sasha and Bayley don't need to tongue kiss on camera or anything like that, but the way they were holding each other, I thought they were going to kiss for a split second on camera. So if WWE does this, I don't see this being a tongue-in-cheek, silly thing like Billy and Chuck. I think this is something that they're really going to try to take seriously, even though I don't think either one of these women can act worth a shit. I think it's something that they very well might do. And at this point, this is the only thing to me that makes sense because this feud has been driving me so crazy and been pissing me off so bad. The fact that Bayley brutally beat the shit out of Sasha Banks and for some reason Sasha doesn't want revenge. What the fuck is going on there? Why are they so against each other one week, wanting to tear each other's eyes out, and the next week they're hugging on camera and smiling and sitting next to each other in the locker room? It's just been such a roller coaster of, I don't know what the fuck, in this angle. And now it's to the point where if it turns out that they're romantically involved, to me, that's the only thing that would save it to where at least makes a little bit of plausible sense. So as crazy as it sounds, I can't even believe I'm saying this, but as crazy as it sounds, I actually want that to be the case here because otherwise, what two friends in the pro wrestling business act like this? Kick the shit out of each other one week and then go to therapy the next. This is crazy. You never see this shit. So this feud between the two was making so little sense, it was making my goddamn head hurt. Anyway, fingers crossed that Sasha and Bayley are lesbians. Before we move on to SmackDown, I do want to mention one other thing, and that's our good old friend Elias. So Elias, completely unbeknownst to me, I had no idea he was doing this, but he's released an album, like an actual album. It's one of the top albums on iTunes right now, apparently, and I got a chance to listen to just a little bit of it. I didn't buy it or anything or download it, but I did listen to a few clips from several songs on the album, and they were pretty good, I guess. A lot of them kind of sound the same. It's a very Elias type of album, but hey, props to him for actually doing this. I think it's already out. They've either releasing it or are about to release it on the WWE Network, the making of the album, or maybe it was on YouTube or the website. I don't know where the fuck it is. I've yet to see that, but they did show a lot of footage of Elias recording the album, and I think that's great. I don't know how this album is going to hold up to John Cena's album or any of Fozzie's albums or anybody else, R-Truth, or any other WWE talent that has made an album before, but I think it's cool that he did this, and Elias is over, and he was all over Monday Night Raw. The poor guy tried to sing a few songs from his album throughout the show, and he kept getting interrupted every single time until finally Kurt Angle came out there and tried to help him out and allow him to sing, but poor Elias couldn't get the damn song out. I've got high hopes that this guy's going to be a pretty big deal in WWE, and congrats on the album. I'll try to listen to more of it. For those of you who have listened to it, what do you think? Was it good? Was it bad? You got to take into context who this is. I don't know what Elias's background in music is, but this guy's a professional wrestler making a music album, so it can only, you got to take it into that context when judging it. Yeah, he's not going to be John Lennon or anything like that, but considering who the person is making this album, and that it's affiliated with WWE, if it's good at all, or earns even a fraction of respect from any credible music critic or anything out there, I think that's a win for WWE. So best of luck to you, Elias, on your album sales. And why don't we move on to SmackDown now, too? We got a bunch of shit to set up for SummerSlam on SmackDown. Now, it opened up with a Randy Orton promo, and like I said, I missed last week's Raw and SmackDown reviews. I wasn't able to get up here and talk about everything or anything on either show, but I think one of the most memorable things of the week is what Randy Orton did to Jeff Hardy. Randy Orton, of course, has recently returned. I believe he returned at Extreme Rules, right? And then during the rematch with Shinsuke Nakamura last week on SmackDown, Randy Orton pulled Jeff Hardy out of the ring right after he hit a swanton on Shinsuke Nakamura and proceeded to beat the shit out of poor Jeff Hardy for like a half an hour. I don't know how much time passed, but it felt like it was a long time on the outside of the ring where Randy Orton is just viciously beating the piss out of Jeff Hardy, and the worst and most gnarly spot of the whole thing was where he grabbed, because Jeff Hardy's got those big giant earrings that you see people have where it stretches the fuck out of their earlobe. A few of my friends have those, and I just don't understand the point of doing that to your ear. But Jeff Hardy has had those things for years, and I guess the earring was out, and he just had that big like loop of skin, or that big hole in his earlobe just dangling there, and oh man, it was beautiful. Randy Orton takes his fingers and gets in the ear and just starts twisting and pulling on the loose skin. I mean, I had to cringe. I was like, oh God, no. Man, Jeff Hardy. I mean, just imagine discussing that backstage. Jeff Hardy's like, hey, you want to put your fingers in my nasty ear piercing and twist off my skin and rip it out? Like, how sadistic would that look for television? And it looked great. My favorite was the shot of the fan who was just cringing. WWE caught a perfect facial expression on a girl in the audience who was just like, oh my God. And I pretty much did the same thing. Damn near made me pass out. So that was good stuff. And heel Randy Orton is the best Randy Orton. I think we can all agree on that. I don't think there's anybody in the internet wrestling community that would disagree with that statement. Randy Orton makes a fantastic heel. As a babyface, he's quite boring. As a heel, he feels like he's more motivated. He has reasons for what he does. And when he was out on SmackDown explaining himself why he's doing what he's doing to Jeff Hardy, he pretty much spins it to where he kind of blames the fans, which is kind of what they do when they don't have a really solid explanation for why a guy is turning heel. But Randy Orton, I don't care why he's doing it. I'm just glad that he is a heel. It just increases his stock on the roster, I think. Randy Orton is a heel, I think, is automatic world title contender. Randy Orton is a babyface, not so much, like U.S. title contender. So I think he's one step higher on the card whenever he's a heel. And he could wind up getting some title shots after SummerSlam against, maybe AJ Styles if he's she's able to get past Samoa Joe. Speaking of AJ Styles, that match was also set up. His opponent for SummerSlam has been set, or at least it looks like it has. Paige was in the ring cutting a promo. She had the contract for SummerSlam sitting right there, and she was going to announce AJ Styles' opponent for SummerSlam. AJ Styles comes out first and cuts a promo and talks about a few things. And then Paige, right when she's about to announce who his opponent is going to be for SummerSlam, James Ellsworth shows up on the ramp, comes down and cuts a promo, says it's going to be him. He's going to face AJ Styles and beat him and become the new WWE champion, which is not out of the realm of possibility. Remember a couple years ago, Ellsworth has like 3 victories over AJ Styles. So I thought it was funny when he came out there, but Paige gets so pissed about Ellsworth coming out there, interrupting the whole thing, that she fires him right there, right in front of everybody, fires him. The security has to drag James Ellsworth out, and, Paige looks back at AJ and says, I'll be right back, and she's going to escort Ellsworth out of the building. And then from behind, Samoa Joe attacks AJ Styles, puts him in the coquina clutch, chokes him out, stands up, and signs the SummerSlam contract. Because earlier on, a few moments before, AJ actually signed it first. So AJ Styles' name was already on the contract, and then Samoa Joe signed his name. So as I'm watching this, I wasn't sure if the storyline here was Joe was not Paige's pick, but he came out and took advantage of the situation, attacked AJ Styles because AJ had already signed the contract, so now it's anybody's game. If he just goes and puts his name on the dotted line, there you go. But it appears that he was going to be Paige's pick all along. Paige just wanted to announce him because they had a little backstage confrontation later on where Paige is a little bit pissed at him, but he's like, I don't want to do the boring thing where you just announce me and I come out there and sign the contract and shake AJ Styles' hand. I want to do something unpredictable, and that's what I did. So I attacked AJ Styles and signed the contract and made a statement that I'm going to take that belt off of him at SummerSlam. So I like the match. I mean, how cool is that? A TNA main event is going to be headlining SummerSlam. It's probably not going to go on last or anything like that, but Samoa Joe versus AJ Styles for a WWE title, for the WWE title at SummerSlam is something that I never thought I would hear. Did you guys? I mean, think about it. In 2010, did you ever think Samoa Joe and AJ Styles would headline SummerSlam, the second biggest pay-per-view of the year? I mean, Jesus. So this is a pretty big deal, and I like it. Now, I'm on the camp. I'm a very pro AJ Styles guy right now. I want to see AJ Styles continue to hang on to the WWE title for a long time. I want him to defeat CM Punk's title run. I want him to have a longer run than him. I want to see AJ and Brock both have a longer run than CM Punk. And I want to see AJ Styles potentially hold the belt until the Royal Rumble. But in order for him to do that, he's got to survive a lot of guys, and Samoa Joe is going to be a very tall order. But again, when you think about this match, I know a lot of my analogies like this usually don't come true, but I usually try to think of this along the terms of WWE. And I think with a match as big as Brock and Roman and a potential title change, hell, potentially 2 title changes if Roman wins the belt and then the briefcase holder wins the belt from him, if all of that happens, I think much like Money in the Bank with Asuka and Carmella, I think it might make Samoa Joe's title victory kind of forgotten or maybe kind of lost in the shuffle or buried underneath all the other crazy shit that happened. And that was a big reason why I was perfectly fine with Asuka not winning the title at Money in the Bank because of what was going on with Nia Jax, Ronda Rousey, and Alexa Bliss. So kind of the same thing applies here. I don't know if Samoa Joe, I think maybe AJ survives the first encounter with Samoa Joe. And if they want to put the belt on Joe, they're going to have a rematch. I mean, I highly doubt, unlike Rusev, Rusev and AJ I think was a one-off. I don't think Joe and AJ will be. So in a prediction that's coming way too early, right now, I'm going to kind of guess that AJ retains, but who knows? I could be totally wrong on that, and as we get closer to SummerSlam, it might become a little bit more apparent what is going to happen. But considering how many variables are in the Universal title match, I don't know if you go with a WWE title change at the same pay-per-view. I think maybe you save it. Speaking of WWE titles being on the line, Becky Lynch is going to be challenging for the SmackDown Women's title. She will be the next challenger for Carmella. Kind of random or out of nowhere because I thought that Asuka or Charlotte would be the ones to, dethrone Carmella, but she somehow survived the two of them. Now she's got to face Becky Lynch at SummerSlam, and I think Becky winning might be a nice kind of feel-good story. Everybody loves Becky Lynch, right? I love her. My God, the woman is gorgeous. Just look at her. She's right here on the screen. Look at how goddamn gorgeous this woman is. She's a good wrestler. She's fun. She's just great all around. I have absolutely not one single negative thing to say about Becky Lynch, and I'm rooting for her. I hope she wins the title from Carmella. I really do. We're also going to have a tag team title match at SummerSlam as well. WWE is doing a little miniature tournament right now, and the New Day defeated Sanity. So Sanity has done actually absolutely jack shit since coming to the main roster. I don't think of a tag team tournament, a number one contender tag team tournament, is really where you need to even have Sanity right now. Especially if you have no plans on putting the tag team titles on Sanity, why have them in the tournament just to lose? You know, they're a brand new act on the main roster. They were super over in NXT, so throw Sanity on the pile, on the big pile of wrestlers that were way better off in NXT than on the WWE's main roster. And next week, the New Day is going to be facing the winner of the Usos and the Bar. So Sheamus and Cesaro have finally returned to TV. During the New Day Insanity match, you had the Usos on commentary, and after the match, the Bar came out to the ring saying that they're back and they're going to be facing the Usos next week, and the winner of that match will then face the New Day the week after, I believe, and the winner of that will go into SummerSlam to face the Bludgeon Brothers for the title. And finally, the last thing I'll mention about SmackDown was the amazing final segment, the Miz TV segment with Miz and Maurice and Daniel Bryan. Miz and Maurice arrive earlier on in the day via limo to the show, and they come out of the limo and they've got their baby with them. They've got their newborn baby, Monroe, whatever the fuck its name is. It's definitely a better name than Birdie, I will say that. But Miz and Mrs., the TV show, or the reality show, was debuting on USA Network right after SmackDown Live. I did not see it. Did you guys catch the debut of the show? It's not something that I really watch. I don't watch Total Divas. I don't watch Total Bellas. I don't watch any reality show at all, and I don't think Miz and Mrs. will be any different. But if you guys took a look at it and you liked it or whatever, leave your comments about it. But they were pretty much really hyping that during the whole segment and during the whole show. So the Miz is out there, and he's got the baby with him. He's got a little front pack, and the baby is strapped to his chest. Maurice is with him. They're talking about their great reality show and how awesome they all are and how beautiful his little baby is and blah, blah, blah. And that's when Daniel Bryan comes out to crash the party. Miz has security there. He's got a couple of security guards and a velvet rope. They won't let Daniel Bryan through. He winds up kicking both of their asses, and then he gets in the ring, and in just a great finish, the Miz takes the baby and throws it at Daniel Bryan, and it was just so perfectly done. This could have looked really stupid very easily, but the way the Miz threw the baby and Daniel Bryan's reaction, the way he perfectly caught the baby, and he's like, whoa! You know, Miz just threw his fucking baby at me, only to realize that it's a doll, and before he can even realize it, Miz kicks him in the face and then hits him with a skull-crushing finale and then cuts a promo over Daniel Bryan's beaten body. And he said, my baby would never come here. That was a stunt baby. The baby that he saw in the ring was a doll. The baby that you saw backstage was a stunt baby because the Miz would never bring his baby to a city like this. And I loved that line. That whole segment was great. Great shit. I mean, Raw was so bad this week. We all watched it together during the live stream. It was horrible. I was surprised I had such a big audience this week watching this nonsense because Raw, even with the number one contenders match, was shit. And SmackDown was 10 times better. I enjoyed almost every segment on SmackDown. I enjoyed the Randy Orton promo. I loved the Samoa Joe and AJ Styles stuff. I loved the Miz TV stuff. I was happy that Becky Lynch earned a title shot. And I thought the James Ellsworth stuff was fun. So all in all, I think SmackDown was 10 times better than Raw this week and did a much better job entertaining me, to say the least. So where does that leave us for SummerSlam? Here are the matches that I have written down so far. I think we've already got 8 matches set up for this thing and potentially 9 or 10 if you look at what the rest of the roster is doing and the matches that we might see announced here in the next couple of weeks. But so far, we, of course, have the 2 big title matches, Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns. We have AJ Styles versus Samoa Joe. We're going to have Alexa Bliss defending the Raw Women's title against Ronda Rousey. We now know that Carmella will be defending the SmackDown title against Becky Lynch. Dolph Ziggler, as announced on Monday Night Raw as well, will be defending the Intercontinental title again against Seth Rollins. And as of right now, there's no stipulation for this match. Considering they had an Iron Man match at Extreme Rules, I'm surprised they're going right back to just a standard one-on-one match. And one of my favorite things to see at a SummerSlam involving the Intercontinental title is a ladder match. We have not seen that in some time. I think the last one that they did for the Intercontinental title, I know they've done SummerSlam ladder matches, but SummerSlam ladder matches for the Intercontinental title, the last one that I remember was 1998 with The Rock and Triple H. Prior to that, it was Shawn Michaels and Razor Ramon. So it's a very rare occurrence, but it's something that I would really like to see, and I'm hoping they might add the ladder match stipulation to Rollins and Ziggler. That would be fun. We also know we're going to see Braun Strowman take on Kevin Owens, and the briefcase will be on the line in that, and the Bludgeon Brothers will face either the New Day, the Bar, or the Usos. And then, of course, after what we saw in the main event of SmackDown, we're most likely going to get Daniel Bryan versus The Miz. So that is 8 matches that I have written down there. We're probably going to have a Raw tag team title match, I'm sure, somewhere in there. We might get a cruiserweight match, maybe on the kickoff show or something like that. Sasha and Bayley might wind up doing something with each other. If they don't wind up doing the love angle with Sasha and Bayley, then I think Sasha has got to turn heel, because that's another thing that they've kind of been teasing, is that Sasha will be the one to go heel. So if that happens prior to SummerSlam, they'll probably make Bayley and Sasha one-on-one. So now you're looking at 9, maybe 10 matches, and we're still a month away from the pay-per-view. So there's not a whole lot left to announce. Shinsuke Nakamura, I'm sure, will be doing something. Randy Orton and Jeff Hardy might wind up doing something. And there's still a lot of women to be utilized on the show as well. So in the end here, we could wind up with a 12 or 13 match card, and SummerSlam weekend is shaping up to look pretty good, I must say. I'm looking forward to it. It should be a lot of fun, and I think NXT is also going to be really fun, because we saw a huge title change at the NXT tapings, and that airs on Wednesday night. Now, this commentary will be up after the match, but I have not yet seen the match. I've only read the spoiler, because I'm recording this before NXT airs. But apparently, Tommaso Ciampa is going to defeat Aleister Black to become the new NXT champion. Johnny Gargano, I think, is involved in the finish of that match somehow. And now the big match at TakeOver is going to be a triple threat. It's going to be Gargano, Ciampa, and Aleister Black for the NXT title. And part of me thinks that's like a shame. I was perfectly fine, and I expected Tommaso Ciampa to become the next NXT champion. I firmly believed that would happen, but I didn't expect it to happen this quickly, and I also didn't expect it to happen on an NXT show, like the regular weekly show. How many guys have lost the NXT title on that show? Just a couple, right? Most of the big title changes take place at TakeOver events. And Aleister Black never even had a chance to headline a TakeOver event, because all the main events went to Gargano and Ciampa. So it looks like they just want the Gargano and Ciampa feud to have the title, which I understand completely. But if that's the case, why didn't they give the belt to Gargano months ago when he faced Almas? If they wanted these two to actually feud for the belt, to me, this feud is too epic and it's too amazing that it doesn't even need the title at all. But maybe WWE decided to insert the title into there at the last minute. But now you got Aleister Black in the way. I'd like to just see another one-on-one, if you ask me, between Gargano and Ciampa, just considering how fucking awesome this feud has been and how long it has lasted and how many different chapters and twists and turns in the story it's taking. You know, I'd be fine with them doing another one-on-one match. But now you got a triple threat. I don't know what that's going to wind up meaning. I'm guessing that Tommaso Ciampa will retain at TakeOver and then go on to face Gargano at the next TakeOver, which I believe will probably be at Survivor Series, right? And I'll be there. I will be in LA for Survivor Series. And if any of you guys are going to be in the LA area during that pay-per-view weekend, hit me up. I'm going to be setting up a meet and greet somewhere. I will not be attending NXT on Saturday, but I do plan on attending, and I've already bought tickets to Something to Wrestle With, the live podcast with Bruce and Conrad on Saturday. And then Sunday, of course, I'll be attending the Survivor Series pay-per-view. So maybe this whole situation with Gargano and Ciampa culminates there. I really don't know. But it sounds to me like they just felt like this feud needs the belt, and it is what it is. So I really don't have any issue with it. I think Tommaso Ciampa is the best heel in the business. I think he should be the NXT champion, and he should be the guy to take the belt off of Aleister Black. I'm just surprised why they seemingly hot-shotted it here. I'm not sure. Your guess is as good as mine. But like I said, I haven't even seen the match yet because it hasn't even aired yet. So I'll take a look at that tonight after the fact, and you guys can leave me all your thoughts on it in the comments below. And I will also, speaking of taking a look at things, and some of you have even been kind enough to send me a link, I will try to take a look at TNA Slammiversary. They did have a pay-per-view this past Sunday that apparently was really good. I was laughing on Twitter at everybody praising the pay-per-view, and I'm like, did I wake up in 2010 or something? Like, what the hell's going on here? This company, it blows my mind how they can be clinging to life. You know, they can just be barely alive, and yet they can always find a way to survive and bounce back. And now even putting on a pay-per-view that apparently wasn't even that bad and was quite good and much better than what we've seen on Raw and SmackDown in recent weeks. It's at least piqued my interest a little bit, and I'll at least maybe take a look at it. So that's about the best that I can promise you. So that is going to pretty much do it for this week. I have got to get out of here, but like I said, stay tuned to the YouTube channel. I will try to be up here this weekend with a one-off episode on something. And then, of course, this Monday, I'll be back up as usual doing my live Raw watch-along, and we can suffer through that nonsense together. So you guys have a great next couple of days, and I will talk to you very soon. Until then, peace.
This has been a Good Mic Work Commentaries production. Be sure to subscribe on YouTube at youtube.com/GoodMicWork. Follow Greg Morgan on Twitter at Good Mic Work and visit GoodMicWorkCommentaries.com for all the latest podcast and video content.